Okay, think about this for a second. Instagram, right? It's huge for creators. Well, it exploded to nearly 40 million users, people with over 1,000 followers each in under a decade.
Wow, yeah, that's some serious growth.
Exactly. And that kind of speed tells you something really big is going on. That something is what we're diving into. The creator economy. It's not just some niche thing anymore.
Not at all. It's fundamentally changing marketing, advertising, the whole landscape, really.
So we want to give you a clear picture, fast.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what's happening here.
Yeah, and look, maybe you've thought about putting stuff online yourself, or you're just curious how these internet personalities actually make money.
Or you hear terms like influencer thrown around all the time and wonder what it really means.
Right. So this deep dive is for you. We're aiming to cut through the noise, give you some clarity, and maybe even a few surprises along the way.
And to do that, we've got a couple of really strong sources lined up. First, there's this great conversation with Colin and Samir.
Oh yeah, those guys are fascinating. They started out making content about lacrosse, of all things, super specific.
Right, and now they run basically the go-to YouTube show for creators talking about the business of being a creator. Real insider perspective.
And we're pairing that with a really thorough guide from GRIN. They lay out the whole creator economy structure, definitions, trends, gives us that broader view.
So we get the street smarts from Colin and Samir and the kind of market map from GRIN. Best of both worlds.
Exactly. So the mission today, let's unpack what this creator economy actually is. How does it work? Who are the people involved?
And what makes some creators break through while others don't? We'll try to do it without drowning you in jargon.
Sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with the most basic question. Who even is a content creator?
Yeah, perfect starting point. GRIN gives us a pretty solid foundation. We say a creator is basically anyone who produces media online that connects with a particular group of people.
Okay, simple enough.
But the key part, they emphasize, is the ability to influence that community. Their opinions matter to their audience.
Right, influence. Colin and Samir look at it slightly differently, maybe more pragmatically.
How so?
They define a creator as someone who makes media online, yes, but specifically someone who monetizes it, either through advertising or by selling things directly.
So the money aspect is core to their definition.
Exactly. And they make this really interesting point. They say the creator economy isn't really a separate economy. It is the economy, just democratized.
Democratize how?
In the sense that the tools for creating media and crucially for making money from it, are now accessible to almost anyone, not just big companies or studios.
Which, leads to that feeling sometimes.
Well,
Isn't everyone a creator now? How do we draw the line?
that's a fair question. GIM points to metrics, follower count, subscriber numbers, engagement levels. That 1,000-follower benchmark on platforms like Instagram often comes up.
Okay, so numbers play a role.
They do, but Colin and Samir add another layer. They distinguish between someone who makes creative work, maybe a one-off project.
Like a filmmaker making a movie.
Exactly. Versus a creator who they see more as someone running a consistent distribution platform, like constantly publishing on YouTube, building that direct audience relationship over time.
That's a useful distinction. It's about the ongoing relationship and output, not just the act of creation itself.
Right. And it's wild to see how this space is blurring lines, isn't it? You've got traditional celebrities now, Tom Brady, Chris Hemsworth, actively playing the creator game.
Yeah, building their own channels, communities. It's definitely evolving. Okay, so if that's who creators are, how does this whole system actually, work? How does the money flow?
Monetization. The million-dollar question, quite literally sometimes. Justin Moore, who runs Creator Wizard, highlights this, and Shine confirms it's a huge focus.
Understandably. So where does the money primarily come from?
Well, historically and still dominantly, it's brand deals, endorsements.
Like seeing an influencer promote a product.
Precisely. GRN cites data from Influencer Marketing Hub suggesting that accounts for something like 77% of creator revenue in their servers, which is huge.
Wow, okay. So brand deals are king, but what else is in the mix?
There are other streams, even if they're smaller percentages right now. Things like ad revenue sharing from the platforms themselves, like YouTube ads,
Right.
direct sales, selling merchandise, digital products, that kind of thing, affiliate links where they get a tut if someone buys through their link, even things like tips from fans, selling online courses, or running subscription models like Patreon is becoming more diverse.
And thinking ahead, Gary Vaynerchuk, big name in marketing, he predicted something pretty bold, didn't he?
He did. He basically said that within like the next decade, every single business and maybe even every individual will need their own sort of content creation engine just to stay relevant online.
That's quite a prediction.
Yeah.
Really underscores the potential scale.
It does. And Colin and Samir really hammer home that point about democratization we touched on earlier. Think about the before times.
Before the internet dominated everything.
Yeah. If you had a great idea for a TV show or even a radio segment, what did you have to do?
You got to pitch it, right?
Yeah.
Go through gatekeepers, networks, hope someone said yes.
Exactly. Layers and layers. Now, someone with a phone and an internet connection can upload directly to YouTube, TikTok, wherever. That barrier is just gone.
And that shift, combined with online advertising systems and platforms sharing that ad money.
That's the key, according to Colin and Samir. That's what allows independent creators to actually make money from their work, sometimes without needing a brand deal right away.
Okay, so the structure is there. But what makes certain content or creators resonate more than others? There's one word that comes up constantly: authenticity.
Oh, absolutely. GRIN really digs into this. It feels like the goalposts have shifted for what audiences value.
You mean?
Meaning the traditional markers of quality, glossy production, famous names, big budgets, they still matter, sure. But they're now competing with things that are maybe easier to achieve for an individual creator.
Like what?
Like how genuine or authentic something feels, its potential to go viral, how relatable it is, how easy it is just to watch or listen to, how relevant it feels to your specific interests.
So it's less about polish and more about connection.
I think so, yeah. Audiences seem to crave that transparency, that feeling of originality, of seeing the real person.
And does that authenticity thing actually impact, say, how well brand deals work?
Definitely. GRIN makes a strong case that influencer marketing is most effective when the creator genuinely likes or uses the product they're promoting.
Makes sense.
And when there's a direct relationship between the brand and the creator, rather than just picking someone off a generic marketplace list, that connection matters.
So how would you define authentic content in this context?
GRM puts it nicely. They say it's media that's honest, compelling, and kind of stands for something more than just selling a product. It brings people together around shared interests or values.
And when creators nail that authentic connection,
That's when you see real influence. People trust the recommendation, and they're much more likely to actually buy something based on it. High conversion power.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Colin and Samir, having been in the trenches and talked to top creators like Mr. Beast, they must have some specific strategies or insights, right?
Oh, absolutely. They've distilled a lot from their own experience and from people like Mr. Beast. One of the most fundamental things they stress is truly understanding your audience.
Basic but crucial.
Super crucial. Asking, who is this actually for, and why would they care enough to watch or listen? They use their old lacrosse network days as an example. A video on how to shoot a lacrosse ball worked because it directly answered a specific audience need.
Right, clear value proposition. And they talked about Mr. Beast having these specific rules for YouTube.
Yeah, apparently Mr. Beast shared his kind of 3 golden rules with them, and it shows how incredibly analytical he is about the platform.
Okay, what are they?
Rule 1, if they don't click, they don't watch. Simple, right? But it means the title and thumbnail are everything. You have to win the click before they even see a second of video.
So packaging first. Makes sense. Rule 2.
Respect their time. Once they click, you've got to hook them fast, like in the first 7 to 30 seconds, and then you have to deliver on whatever the title and thumbnail promised. Don't waste their attention.
Good advice for any content, really. And the third.
Rule 3 is basically asking, do you want more stuff like this? It's about thinking about the overall value you're providing. Is this content good enough that they'll want to come back? And it connects to future content and eventually monetization.
Interesting. So click, hook, value. And they gave examples of how titles and thumbnails play into that first rule, right?
Yeah, Colin mentioned a video they made. A title like, let's talk about plagiarism on YouTube is okay, but kind of bland. Changing it to the copy and paste culture of YouTube created way more curiosity. It makes you lean in, wonder what that culture is. That's winning the click.
And they mentioned some celebrity examples, too, like closing the loop too quickly.
Yeah, like a Chris Hemsworth video titled 24 Hours in Spain. You kind of know what you're getting. Or watching Tom Brady highlights with Julian Edelman. Again, the title tells the whole story. There's less incentive to click because the curiosity gap is already closed.
Ah, okay. Keeps a mystery. And this Jenga storytelling idea, what's that?
It's about structuring the video. Instead of just a simple setup and payoff, the best YouTube videos, they argue, build tension more like a game of Jenga. It rises, maybe dips a bit, rises higher. It's uneven, keeps you engaged right to the end.
So not just a straight line, but peaks and valleys of tension.
Exactly. And Mr. Beast seems to be a master of this, driven by his relentless, data-focused approach. He's like a student of the platform, always testing, learning, problem solving.
And he's not afraid to call others out for not following these rules.
Apparently not. He really believes in this methodical approach.
Beyond the content itself, Colin and Samir also talked about their own partnership, didn't they? How they make it work.
They did. They touched on how their different personalities help one more business-minded, one more creative-focused, one front of camera, one behind the scenes.
Complementary skills.
Right. But crucially, they mentioned having shared taste, a similar vision for quality. And those early wins they had together really built commitment. They described it as 1 + 1 = 3.
The synergy effect.
Yeah. They acknowledged challenges too, of course, different work ethics, staying focused, aligning vision that's normal in partnerships. But their initial dynamic, where one was technically employed by the other, actually helped set clear roles early on.
Interesting how that initial structure shaped things. Now, Jaren's guide also mentioned different roles creators often play within this economy.
Yeah, they broke it down into a few common categories. First, you have content creators as celebrities.
The big names.
The big names. Million-plus engaged followers. Their endorsements have major impact, but they also command high fees, obviously.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there are content creators as content producers. These are folks skilled at actually making great content videos, photos, blog posts that brands can then use on their own channels, often more affordable and maybe feel more authentic than using a big agency.
Okay, so providing the creative assets.
Exactly. And the third category is content creators as influencers. Here, the focus is really on the trust and relationship they have with their audience. People follow their opinions, their guidance.
So, celebrity reach, production skill, or trusted advisor. Different angles.
Different primary functions, yeah. Though many creators probably blend these roles to some extent.
And the platforms themselves, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, their relationship with creators is always changing too, isn't it?
Constantly. GRI noted how Instagram, for instance, keeps rolling out new monetization tools during events like Creator Week, trying to keep creators happy and on their platform.
Look, what kind of tools?
Experimenting with things like direct tipping from fans, even exploring content NFTs, though that's still pretty niche.
Right. And Colin and Samir made an interesting point about different types of platforms, didn't they? Permission versus interruption.
Yes, that was really insightful. They talked about podcasts, for example, as permission-based. You actively choose to subscribe and listen.
Okay.
Whereas YouTube often is more interruption-based. You're scrolling, something catches your eye, the thumbnail, the title, and it interrupts your flow. It demands attention differently.
So the way you build an audience might differ.
Potentially, yeah. They use Theo Von as an example on YouTube, someone who built a huge, loyal following, maybe less through perfectly optimized thumbnails, and more through sheer consistency and his relatable, familiar personality over time. People tune in for him.
So it's not always about the perfect clickbait, which leads to another point they made. Not all views are created equal.
Exactly. It's not just about getting the highest view count possible. It's about attracting the right audience, people who are genuinely interested in your specific thing, filtering for quality over just quantity.
Better to have 10,000 really engaged fans than 100,000 who don't really care.
Precisely. And finally, GIR briefly touched on metrics, what creators and brands track. For nurturing an audience, they look at engagement rates, follower growth.
How much people are interacting.
Right. And for conversion actually driving results, they look at click-through rates, sign-ups, leads, actual sales generated from the creator's content.
And they listed different content types too.
Yeah, just examples of things creators use to engage their audience, contests, Q&As, how-to videos, behind-the-scenes stuff, all aimed at building that community connection.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground there. So let's try to synthesize the key takeaways from this deep dive.
Sounds good. I mean, fundamentally, the creator economy is about this massive shift towards democratized media. Anyone can create, and increasingly, anyone can potentially monetize that creation.
Right. And while brand deals are still the biggest slice of the money pie, there's a growing diversity in how creators earn.
And that idea of authenticity just kept coming up. It's not just a buzzword. It seems crucial for actually building trust and influence with an audience.
Definitely. Plus, the insights from people like Colin, Samir, and Mr. Beast show that success often involves a really strategic, almost scientific approach to understanding your audience and the platform itself.
Yeah, that blend of creativity and analytics seems key. And just remembering that initial statistic Instagram hitting nearly 40 million creators in under 10 years.
It just hammers home the sheer scale and impact of this whole phenomenon. It's not fringe anymore.
Not at all.
And, even if you listening aren't planning to become a full-time creator, those core ideas we discussed, knowing your audience, creating something valuable, focusing on connection, those apply almost anywhere, don't they?
Absolutely. Whether it's a business, a project, even just communicating effectively, thinking about who you're trying to reach and why they should care is fundamental.
So maybe a good exercise for anyone listening. Who is your audience in whatever you do? And what's the genuine value you're offering them?
That's a great takeaway. And maybe one final thing to leave people thinking about. As these lines keep blurring between creators, traditional celebrity, brands becoming media companies, what's next?
Yeah, what new opportunities or maybe even challenges pop up in this constantly shifting landscape?
And in a world overflowing with content, how vital will that genuine authenticity be for long-term success, for building connections that actually last between a creator or a brand and their audience? Something to ponder.